All right, welcome to tonight's special edition of the X's and Knowles YouTube channel. We're going to call this Three Verticals, since we've got three of our four verticals crew. Tonight we're missing Adam Brown. I'm Juan Montalvo. You, of course, will remember Kevin Little of X's and Knowles and John Marchant. Boys, how are you doing tonight?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing well. I'm going to kick it over to Kevin. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I've been watching a lot of basketball. It's time for football season.
Well, you were in a ham shirt, so we're going to have
That's
to get
true.
your mindset off of that. Let's start. We're going to go right into it. We're going to talk about the spring game. It's coming this Saturday. We're recording on Tuesday night. We talked about it a little bit on the podcast this week on the Seminole Wrap. I had Trey Rowland of Rollcast and Triple Option fame. And I'm going into like my full radio voice here. I don't know why, but let's go. Let's get right into it. What are you guys looking forward to seeing most? I'm going to start with you, John.
So one thing I think I'm really excited about is just to see if, I mean, again, there's only so much you can take away from a spring game, but I want to see some of the progress. I want to see some of the players, the effort, just a little bit more of a continuation from what we saw last season. So I'm kind of excited to see, maybe how he uses some players, see if any guys kind of like, flash a little bit, that type of stuff.
Yeah, and obviously in the spring game, you typically get a pretty vanilla scheme as far as both offense and defense goes. We're probably not going to be able to break down some brand new exotic coverage or anything like that for Adam Fuller. Before I get Kevin involved here, they released a little bit about the game today. They're going to run a one half as a scrimmage, offense versus defense. They're not going to split it into garnet and gold teams as we remember Jimbo Fisher doing many times. So they're going to run one half as basically just regular offense versus defense scrimmage. And then they're going to go into some special teams play. And then they're going to start working on what they call the fun little competition. I have to imagine that involves the celebrity play callers they have brought in. On the gold squad, it's some of the better known sports writers out there, Andy Staples and Andrea Delson of ESPN. And on the FSU side, we'll call it the Garnet side, we got Gene Deckerhoff, and he's going to be with the name escapes me at the moment. You guys have that off the top of your head?
No.
No, I don't know.
Okay. I forget who it was too.
I
but
thought someone was mentioning James Wilder being around Tallahassee and potentially might be involved, but I don't know his capacity in
he's
that.
in town if we need any investment advice. So we're gonna see. I guess at the end of it, they're gonna have like maybe let them call some plays or let them get involved. But it should be a fun time. And they're obviously speaking to what John's saying. You're looking for progress. We've been able to get a little bit of B-roll, which you guys here on Triple Option have analyzed a couple times. Kevin, what have you been seeing so far in the spring? B-roll footage that you think you might translate in the spring game.
Yeah, so firstly, they asked AB and I, and we had to turn it down. We were both busy that day, so they gave it to Gene instead, so that wasn't too big of a deal. But outside of that, I've been lucky enough to be able to go to the practices, the scrimmages they've been putting on, kind of to the public. That pretty much anybody's been able to walk in and see. But so I've gotten a pretty good taste of what this is probably going to look like. And if it
So
looks,
you've been taking some really good notes when you've done that. I know that we've talked about it in our Slack chat for Tomahawk Nation. You first of all, you have fantastic handwriting. I think that's the first thing I want to mention. But you also take a lot of notes on which quarterbacks in, what sort of coverages are they running, what sort of routes are the receivers running, the offensive line blocking, how the defensive line's performing. It's pretty comprehensive. Why don't you walk us through a little bit of what you've seen so far?
yeah, and I might try to figure out how to post those somewhere where anybody on this YouTube channel could check them out. But yeah, I've seen a lot of. You can kind of just gauge what's most important because they don't do a ton of drills. So the drills that they do for these scrimmages are probably going to be the most important drills. The drills they want to make sure are fundamental, are second nature, are habits. And so you see a lot of outside zone blocking drills for the offensive linemen. You see a lot of form tackling for the linebackers, like trailing the guy outside, getting their helmet on the inside of the running back, and wrapping up. With wide receivers, you see a ton of blocking drills, like screen blocking drills. So that's going to be something I'm watching out for in this scrimmage specifically. Theoretically, we're going to have a quarterback that's comfortable running starting this offense. So it's going to be very vital that we're able to get these quick screens and like triple option looks going. And then for the quarterbacks, it's pretty standard, catching snaps and stuff like that. And so, I took really good notes. Got to go to those games. It was a lot of fun. And if they ever do that again, I suggest people go check them out.
Yeah, I think there's obviously, the focus on these sort of things typically goes to the quarterbacks. I think one of the more memorable plays in spring game history was the pass that Jameis Winston threw in the 2013 spring game to walk-on receiver over LaMarcus Joyner's head for a touchdown on, I don't know if it was his first snap, I think, from scrimmage.
Yeah.
So his first snap from scrimmage in an FSU uniform was a touchdown over LaMarcus Joyner. So everyone was pretty excited about that with good reason. John, what are you going to be looking for from the quarterbacks on Saturday?
This is the hard thing about spring for me, is because on one hand, I feel like can't take too much from it, right? But on the other hand, one of the things I'm really looking forward to this season, and I kind of want to see a little bit of it, the spring game, maybe Kevin has a little bit of notes on this, is more of the evolution of the passing game. So that's what I want to see from the quarterbacks. Is not anything really specific, just operating the passing game, right? Finding the open guy. I don't care about stats, but I want to see, and again, I know the schemes are going to be vanilla, but I want to see some of the execution of the passing game and just, some rhythm to it and that type of stuff.
One thing that we've talked quite a bit about, and you talked about, Kevin, on your McKenizie Milton videos, is he's got a very quick release. We've heard that he's struggled at times in the spring. He's not, maybe as of the earlier scrimmages, maybe wasn't 100% up to, learning the playbook, that sort of thing, which is completely understandable. I want to see that quick release. I mean, it's something that I think is critical to how FSU is going to be able to play this year. You're not a team that, even with an improved offensive line, obviously you're not going to be, a 7-step drop type offense, just based both on Milton's style and the way that Norvell plays too. So, you're going to see a lot more of those quick screens. You're going to see a lot more quick game, that sort of thing. And I want to see Milton execute that well. I mean, because at this point, I think we all probably are going to assume that, the starter come Labor Day weekend is going to be McKenizie Milton.
Yeah, I think, and just to give a little bit of warning, I don't think you're going to see too many downfield passing options for McKenizie and for Jordan Travis if they're on the first team. Whether it's the defensive line looking great or the offensive line struggling or a little bit of both, there hasn't been a ton of time in the pocket, and there actually has been some decent coverage downfield. So a lot of the downfield passing is kind of hard to gauge based off what I've seen, and I wouldn't really expect that to change much come Saturday.
Yeah, and that's something that I think it's the sort of the paradoxical nature of a spring game. I mean, you're always happy to see individual players succeed, and then you also it is their teammate that they're beating at the end of the day. So it's like, great, McKenizie Milton threw it to Pokey over Jarvis Brownlee. Was that Jarvis Brownlee's mistake? Was that Pokey Wilson running a great route? Was it a great throw? Or was the protection good? I mean, did he see something at the line that caused him to go that direction? You always have to be careful and measured in what you take away from a spring game, because at the end of the day, it is a scrimmage, and it is between the same teams and guys that go against each other every day. So it's what we want to look at and see is stuff that can translate, to the fall. You make a good throw against your own teammate. It's something that you can probably replicate come fall. If you have a guy who, let's say, a receiver knows exactly how a defensive back is going to come off the press, he's going to take advantage of that a little bit more than maybe a regular conference player receiver would on a random Saturday in the fall. So, what would you think about those sort of things, Kevin?
Yeah, I think that it's for fun. It's that's all it is.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to pick some things up, like kind of what they're looking to do with a quarterback like McKenizie Milton. What is the general feel of their play calling style going to be with him? What are they trying to transition to on defense? How does Amari Gaynor look playing Will? Just seeing new things like that will be fun, but I don't know how much you're going to be able to gauge off the overall talent or overall ability of the team.
Yeah, so John, who are you going to be looking at when it comes to the defensive side of the ball?
Well, that was, you guys touched on it, is the corners. Like, one thing we had discussed a lot last season was how the corners often allowed receivers to cross their face. They didn't get a jam at the line. You kind of gave them a free release. That's a technique thing that you can coach and work on. And so, I'm not, again, this is just practice, right? And then you still got 4 months before the season starts. There's a lot of practice to go. But some kind of improvement in some personal technique things that some of the guys do, I think that'll be what I look for. And then also, they're kind of rebuilding this defensive line. I just kind of want to see how some guys do there. And that type of stuff, maybe gap integrity. Again, like Kevin said, it's for fun. You can't read too much into anything, but still you keep an eye on some guys and see what they do, the effort they give, just kind of, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fun aspect is something that can't be overlooked. I mean, at the end of the day, it's Saturday of Masters weekend. You're getting a couple hours to watch Florida State, see what they may be looking like a little bit in the fall. But yeah, it is for fun at the end of the day. And I think I'm really looking forward to seeing some of those guys that we haven't ever seen before. I mean, Brandon Moore, we talked about a little bit, Jamie Robinson, Jermaine Johnson is obviously one of the highlights that we've talked about quite a bit. I guess he's been, Kevin, was he one of the standouts that you saw in like the scrimmages?
Yeah, pretty consistently you see number 11 making plays. But I've got to give credit to Derek McClendon.
A defensive end making plays?
Yeah.
I'm so excited to watch that kid.
Looked pretty solid.
Yeah, man, he's a super talented kid, and I'm glad that we were able to get him out of Georgia. I'm glad that Georgia's so stacked that they have the ability to shed a guy like that and him instantly come in and be like an impact type guy on our team. Because hey, if one man's trash is another man's treasure, I guess.
Hey, Kevin, let me ask you real quick. What did you see from the safeties? Anything like to take away from in the practices you saw?
Yeah, I saw that they were rotating a fair amount of people throughout the whole secondary. The safeties, they were challenged a couple of times deep. I thought they did a pretty good job. There's one play that stands out specifically where they had been hitting this. They had been hitting this little toss play that you saw it last year. It's just a toss out to the edge to kind of take advantage of space out there to the running backs, and then about halfway through one of the scrimmage, they did a fake toss with some fade routes, and I want to say it was Jarvis Brownlee did a good job of covering downfield and swatted the ball away. I could be getting that wrong. The name could escape me, but either way, the coverage has been pretty locked down for the first defense, and I don't know if that's because they're playing super well again, but I think that I saw a lot of really encouraging signs from the secondary.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think the secondary is something that I think they've got three new transfers this year in the secondary. More Jamie Robinson and no, I'm thinking of including last year's transfers. Jerry and Jones and Miko Dotson were two other guys that came in as transfers last year. But no, there's a third transfer that I'm thinking of.
Well, we're also getting Tate for the first time.
Yeah, he's like a new signing. As in the soccer world.
So outside of the secondary and the quarterbacks, is there any sort of skill positions on offense you guys will be looking for?
I want to see if there's someone capable of playing receiver at a high level.
Yeah, I think that's a big question, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing that obviously having Jordan Trapp's quarterback last year sort of hindered them, and that he's not the best as of last year, especially when he was running a lot and taking a lot of dings. He didn't show a lot of passing game, especially in the short to intermediate areas of the field. Obviously threw plenty of screens and then some bombs and shot plays, those sort of things. But I'd like to see him develop more as a passer and not that, you know, the spring game being about having fun aside, it's you want to see stuff that's a little bit different from what you've seen in the previous years. And so for me, if Jordan Travis can put some stuff that's underneath, maybe some drag routes, some mesh routes, if it's to do some air raid stuff if we have to.
We're not going to get
and
it.
No, I know it. Thank goodness. And the stuff like that, I'd like to see. Square ins, levels, stuff like that. I mean, I want to see all those sort of that 5 to 15 yard range. I want to see him do some of those at an effective level.
Yeah, I think that's a place that you really have to kind of hang your hat on if you've got quarterbacks like McKenizie Milton and Jordan Travis. I don't think you're going to be able to consistently chuck it over everybody's head, and so you've got to have a way to bring them up and a way to exploit defenses that are cheating towards the running game.
Yeah, those sort of high-low combinations, in the intermediate area, that you combine that with a running quarterback, and you really put that second level into a bind.
Right. Isn't Norvell a fan of like some short like or shallow triangle reads, things like that? I mean, those aren't deep routes. They're a lot of them aren't difficult. Things like spot or whatever. Might be able to run some of that stuff with them. Again, if you have a guy with Milton, he's going to quick release, get the ball out so fast. Stuff like that might be able to just chain moving kind of stuff. But aside from receivers too, I'm really excited. Like I've been a huge fan of Toy Feely almost from like the first time he took the field. I love that kid. But also that transfer that we got Williams, he looks explosive. I'm kind of excited to see him too.
Yeah, he hasn't gotten a ton of snaps based off what I've seen, but I'd be curious to see if they change that for the official spring game.
Yeah, we know that they're going to be rotating all these guys a lot, and in the spring game venue, we'll probably even start to see some walk-ons just because they're talking about doing one half. They're not going to, at the end of the day, they've got 110 players, including the walk-ons. They're going to make sure that they get that those walk-ons families are coming up for this game because it's probably the best chance they're going to have of seeing their kids play. And realistically, at the end of the one half of the offense versus defense scrimmage, you're going to see some of the walk-ons. But you're also going to see everybody else from, your nailed-on starters, your Jayshon Corbins. You're going to see all the way to Deontay Sheffield. I mean, you're going to see everybody in between. So that's the most fun part about spring to me is you get to really take a couple snaps for every player and overanalyze the hell out of them for the next 6 months.
And you'll get to see Geno English take some snaps.
He is the best quarterback out there.
Yeah, he had
I think
100% touchdown rate.
That's right. I think we talked about it on the podcast, but he had one drive for one touchdown, and I think you counted 18 other drives that resulted in one touchdown total combined.
Yeah.
So Geno English is to date the most successful quarterback in open spring practices.
Yeah, forget who he's going against. It doesn't matter, but Geno English, walk-on quarterback.
He was going against Tommy Spanish and Frankie French.
So, guys, what is the one player you'll be watching out for potential improvement? That's a returning player.
For me, it's got to be Amari Gainer, and it's not even necessarily that he isn't capable of improvement, or it was well. Let me put it this way: I think he was out of position last year, out of necessity, which Fuller's basically admitted and said for several months now, that they wanted to start him out at that stud position and then try to move him inside. Well, here he is. He's a will backer, and I want to see him in that will position where he's going to be out, in the space towards that field side and able to actually, use his talent in a way that's probably a little bit more fitting of his abilities and where he is as a player. I mean, I think that if he can be put in a position to succeed, but then, it's going to help the defense be that much more successful. I mean, it's somewhat reminiscent to me of not quite the same move because it's very different positions. But, when Christian Jones was moved from being a stand-up end on the line of scrimmage, from being a Mike backer to being a stand-up end on the line of scrimmage in 2013. Obviously, this is not going to be a 2013 level defense or team for that matter. But, Amari Gainer is a guy that's going to be critical to this team's success, in my opinion.
Yeah, someone who's getting a lot of hype, too.
Yeah, no, and I want to see it.
For me, I don't know. This is for fun. Jermaine Johnson, the kid. I want to see how explosive he is off the edge. I want to see. I mean, can he bend the edge, get to the quarterback 5-6 steps, something like that? I'm really excited to see that. But that's not really improvement. I see this for me. It's not one player. I want to see better corner play. Just overall together as a group. That's kind of what I'm looking for.
Yeah, no
Can we
matter
just
who's
say
out
the boundary cornerbacks who can press? Period.
Right. Yeah. I hope so.
there. Yeah,
I
Fuller
mean,
loves to put those guys on islands, so that's really important.
yeah, I mean, I think that's critical to the way they play, and I think that's something that we've talked about it a ton, obviously, on all the different venues, triple option, center wrap, etc. You have to be good on the boundary for this defense to succeed. I don't know if maybe that makes us a little bit less flexible than we need to be because that's just the way that Fuller sets up, or if once we have people who are capable of doing that, then you're going to start to see this defense sort of reach those next levels.
Yeah, I think secondary play should be a good amount of attention, and almost like we want to see McKenizie Milton throwing the ball all over the field, but almost if he's doing it too easily, it's that's not a good thing. I think that's probably the area they tried to most directly address in the transfer market last year. So for me, I think I've got to go with Darius Washington. So this will be his third year getting snaps. I think I don't know how COVID changes how people's classification is, but he still has a few years left here. But this is about when you need to start being an above average lineman, an above average contributor for the ACC. You need to be able to take on, you need to at least, be able to take on the best matchups in the ACC and not completely look like a fool. And so as the left tackle, I need him to kind of take that next step. I don't know if I've seen that in these past couple scrimmages that I've gotten to see, but I think he's probably gotten a fair amount of heat from other people. I think that this Saturday is a time to step up, and it's a time to show the fan base that I'm ready to be a serviceable left tackle. I'm ready to be your foreseeable future at this position.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and obviously, if it turns out that he doesn't happen to have a great, 3 or 4 series or whatever it turns out to be, that doesn't mean that he's not going to be good in the fall. But it'd be great to see a good performance from him in the limited window that we're going to get on Saturday.
And we're finally at a place where we're going to have potential tackles to kind of start pushing him and kind of start pressing for playing time.
I mean, I would love to see. Obviously, he's not an early enrollee, but I'd love to see a situation where you don't see Rod or this fall. You don't want to start playing freshman tackles if at all possible, obviously. So for that to happen, you would Devontae Love Taylor obviously is out this spring, but you have to have guys like Darius Washington, Robert Scott. Those guys, they need to be able to step up and show that they're the guys for this.
Yeah, so I think this has probably been about a good amount of time. So if you want to give one closing thought, one closing thing that you think is probably the most important thing to keep in mind while watching the spring game, go ahead and give it for me, John.
The most important thing to keep in mind. I don't know. Make sure you don't take it too seriously.
You mean don't make wide sweeping statements about how our offensive line will never recover if they give up a sack?
We're going to go 0-40, and it's going to be the worst team we've ever seen, and Norvell should be fired, and this is a joke. Yeah, none of that.
Yeah, I'm going to go the other direction. I think that if you see this team doing anything correctly, you can revise your win total expectations to maybe 10 or 11. No, I mean, you watch the spring game to have fun and see some progress, and you want to see progress from key players. I mean, the guys that I'm going to be looking at the most are going to be, I'd be lying if it was anyone other, anyone was higher on the list than McKenizie Milton for me. Just first time in a garnet and gold jersey on a television for me to watch it. And then, from there, I want to see a boundary corner who can press, and I want to see guys having fun. Darn it!
Well, thank you guys for coming on my channel. It's been a long time since we've had you, but I love the thoughts, and I can't wait for this Saturday. For those of you guys still here, we're gonna have a lot of stuff to talk about next week. We'll have a standard triple option, and we're also thinking about potentially having a instant reaction video cast with me and AB Saturday night after the scrimmage. So if you want
That's a man who knows how to overreact.
that is a man that knows how to react. So if you want some more coverage coming up next week, there's a lot of great content on Tomahawk Nation. You can check these guys out at John writes the best long form articles on the site, and Juan's a big part of the Seminole Rap. So thanks for joining me even without the two regulars for the triple option, and go Noles.
Go Noles.